I think this Lakers Warriors series is going to be one of the best of the entire playoffs. And first and foremost, the initial thing I look at when it comes to playoff series is who has the best player. Because a lot of the time, you can project a ton about the series just knowing that information. And for me, Curry is going to be the best player in this series, or at the very least, he is the best player entering the series. But you could convince me that in a 7 game series, LeBron will have a renaissance and return to his best player in the world form. So that becomes very interesting. And it's also interesting that Anthony Davis and LeBron are about as good of a duo as you'll ever see in the NBA. And I think they'll be able to go head to head with Steph Curry and either Klay Thompson or Andrew Wiggins, depending on who you view as the second best player for the Warriors. I would actually say Wiggins is probably their second best player just because his defense is so exceptional and he is so versatile on who he can guard. And his offense isn't that far behind Clay's, but I think you could go either way for sure. Regardless, it's a very tight race for the best duo in this series, and I think that is, in this case, more relevant than just who is the best player because Davis and LeBron I see as a package deal. It's hard to isolate one from the other because they do so much of their work together, and I think that just makes for a really good matchup because the Warriors match up very nicely, or about as nicely as any team possibly could, against this duo, where Andrew Wiggins is that elite perimeter defender, and he can also switch on Davis too. And then Kevon Looney is a premier interior defender, as is Draymond Green, and both Looney and Green can also switch on to LeBron. So I think it's going to be great that we're almost always going to have an elite defender on an elite offensive player for the Lakers. And I think that's really interesting because that's very rarely the case. We saw Dylan Brooks on LeBron and Jaren Jackson Jr. on Anthony Davis quite a bit, but it wasn't every single play that we just saw elite on elite. And I would argue that Wiggins is a notably better defender than Dylan Brooks is, regardless of the talk off the court. And yeah, I would take Jaren Jackson Jr. over Kevon Looney, but I don't think it's a slam dunk that Jackson Jr. is a much better defender than Green. So I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw in the Grizzlies series, but just better with the Warriors. And I think inversely as well, we're going to see a lot of what we saw with the Kings against the Warriors, except the Lakers are going to be more well equipped to defend the Warriors. The one thing that gives me some real hesitancy with the Lakers being able to defend the Warriors is obviously, first and foremost, you have to have a plan to stop Steph Curry. And I think the Lakers are going to sell out a lot to putting sort of passive double teams on Curry. But at the end of the day, you're going to need one person on him at all times. And I think the Lakers are going to choose to have Dennis Schroeder on Curry because Schroeder really did a good job of defending John Morant for the most part. Morant obviously got his quite frequently, but that's going to happen regardless of the defense. So I think that though they're drastically different players, at the end of the day, if you're going to guard John Morant, you're also going to guard Steph Curry. And I don't think that's the best matchup because I just don't think Schroeder is the elite defensive player, but I think basically everybody else is going to have a solid or better matchup. I think Davis is going to be on Green quite a lot, and he's going to be able to sag off of Green and provide help defense, which is a terrifying thought if I'm a Warriors fan, because Davis is at his absolute best as a help defender, and I don't think Green is going to be much of a threat enough to really make it that Davis can't just sag off of him and provide help on anybody else. So, long story short, I just think this is a series filled of great matchups, and that is true at the team holistic sense as well, as Golden State ranked second in 3% in the NBA, and defensively, the Lakers ranked second in defending the three. So that is another great matchup of strength on strength. But the opposite is also true, where there are some glaring weaknesses that could be exploited. And one such thing is in favor of the Lakers, where Golden State had the most fouls out of anybody in the NBA, and the Lakers were first in drawing fouls. So that's going to have to be a major area of improvement for the Warriors in this series, is they can't get into the tendency of fouling, because LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to draw a ton of fouls just on their own. The Warriors can't be undisciplined and make it any easier for the Lakers to get to the line, because at the end of the day, that is the most efficient form of basketball, is getting free throws and getting the other team into trouble with fouls. So I could see a world in which the Lakers are in the bonus for much of the games, and that is going to be a real issue that the Warriors need to address. In the end, I think this series is going to go at least 6, possibly even 7, but I would say I lean Golden State, and the reason for that is, though they may have issues with fouling, I do just think they have that tendency to turn the switch on come playoff times, and say with them struggling on the road in the regular season, that wasn't much of an issue for them in the playoffs. I think they'll have a similar situation with fouling, that they'll realize they can't be lax and commit dumb fouls. So I think the Lakers are going to have to make them earn their fouls. And I think Steph Curry, like I said, is just going to be a real menace for the Lakers to defend. So I think that's going to be what causes this edging out. I don't think it's impossible for the Lakers to win, but I think their main avenue to success would be to almost entirely sell out to stop Steph Curry and hope that the rest of the Warriors don't play efficient enough basketball, which has some merit to it, because in Game 7 it took 50 points from Curry, and basically no one else was playing that well offensively. So there is an avenue for the Lakers for sure. I just think the Warriors match up slightly more favorably with how they can defend the elite players of the Lakers, whereas the Lakers are a better defense in a vacuum, but not particularly well equipped to stop Steph Curry. That's my thoughts on the series. Be sure to let me know what yours are, and also please be sure to subscribe for more NBA and NFL content.